If you're a dumpster diver, you're used to it. You find a lot of broken candles. A lot of them. Bath & Body Works is notorious for throwing away a ton of broken candles. That's at least where I find the most of mine. Now what do you do with all those candles that have broke? How do you repurpose them? How do you use them? I'm going to show you here what I do with them. I turn the candles into wax melts. Now in order to do that, you have to melt down the wax, so that way you can actually mold it into the shapes you want. You could just cut it up into chunks, but I mold it into pretty little shapes so that they're cute, so that I can also have a resale value if I want to sell some of these. And they're also great gifts. This was actually Christmas gifts at our house this year. We gave out wax melts to a lot of people that we made ourselves from Bath & Body Works candles. So Christmas out of the dumpsters. Who'd have thought? Who'd have thought? But to start off, you cannot melt the wax directly over the flame. It will release the toxins from the wax. That will cause a toxic reaction, basically. So you have to put water into a pot. There's water in there, you can see it moving around. And then you can put the wax into a baggie or a Pyrex. I'm using a Pyrex just because I don't trust a baggie in that heat not to melt. That would be my luck. So you put that Pyrex in with your candle inside of it. Now I took the glass off the candle. I cleaned as much of the glass as I possibly could. You might have a little bit left on there, but I cleaned as much as you can. Then I also left the wicks in there. Those will come out as it melts. You turn on your stove, which I need a lighter because for some reason the ignition on one of mine does not work, and that's this one. So we light it on up, put it to like a medium to low heat, and you let it gradually melt down. It does take a little while, but you don't want to heat it directly over the heat. It melts fast that way, but it also gives you a risk. You just let it gradually melt down until you can pour it into the molds. I've already been working on this for quite some time today. I couldn't really record earlier because I had children that had the Xbox on and it was just too noisy. But these are some of the candles I remade from ones I did earlier. Just mason jars. I took the wicks out of the 3-wick candles that I just repurposed, and I inserted them into the mason jar. I hot glued them to the bottom so they didn't move around, and then I poured the wax in. That one candle made 3 small mason jars. Don't mind the mess on the table. That's all that wax that's gotten poured on the table. I'm going to have to clean all that off. But these are the silicone trays that I'm going to use to make the wax melts. You got all these fun shapes. There's hearts, there's presents, there's some reindeer, we got the skulls. But you can buy all kinds of fun shapes in those. I've already been making some all day. I'm going to show you right away my tote of all the different ones I've made. But I'm still making more. We'll get back to that process as we get these ones melted, or this wax melted, so you can see the whole process of pouring it. But I figured I'd show you what silicone trays I am using. This is the tray of the ones I've already been doing. As you can see, we got them labeled with each type of variety. And there's 8 per bag, I think. Yeah, there's 8 in there. One of them's underneath the others. I was like, I know I did 8. Now, the white ones are a little bit pink in hue because when I did this spiced apple toddy, it kind of dyed my trays a little red. But you've got, I'll pull that one out. The spiced apple toddy, there's 8 in there. 8 is what fits in these snack size bags. That's what I put into there. All of them are labeled. That's all of the wax melts. Essentially, one candle makes up 6 bags of 8. Okay, once all that wax is hardened, I've been doing sets of 8. So you're just going to, with these silicone, they're easy. You just basically push the bottom and they pop straight out. So you Go ahead and pop them out and bag them up. Again, don't mind the mess on the table. As you can see, all this is wax. It's all got it cleaned off. Been doing this all day, so lots and lots of wax. But very simple to take out of these silicone trays. Very simple to do. Not a hard process. It's a little more time consuming than anything. But it's an easy process to do to recycle all those broken candles. Like I said, yeah, you could just chop it up into chunks if you're just going to use it. Not as pretty. This is a little easier, I think, to store. It stacks a little easier because they're all flat instead of just chunks. But if you're just cutting them up for yourself, sure, that's a fast option. Where if you wanted to gift these or try to sell them, you're going to want to make something prettier than just chunks of wax. So, it really depends on what your plan is with it. If you're planning on just using it yourself, then sure, the cutting up option works out just fine. If you want to actually sell them or actually gift them, you want to actually make them look a little prettier, which this is where this comes into play. Like I said, you can go to Dollar General, Family Dollar, Walmart, any of those stores, and you can find these silicone trays, and you can get multiple different shapes. I've seen summer shapes, I've seen winter shapes, I've seen every holiday shape. We buy them a lot of times at the end of holidays, so we get a lot of holiday shapes at this house. We also make our own fruit snacks and everything else that we like using these trays for. I think I'm going to be making a trip to go buy more because I don't know if I want to use these for fruit snacks next time since we use them for wax. So I think I'm going to have to go buy myself some more silicone trays. But they're only $1 a tray. If you get them after the holidays, you will get them for sale sometimes for 50 cents. So really not bad. Can't complain about that. I think I paid 50 cents for 90% of the ones I have. I try to keep the shapes the same between the two when I'm doing this. Clean that one off a little bit. Not that it matters, it's just more wax that someone's going to melt, but if you're going to sell them, you don't want them looking all rough and jaggedy. But that's all the hearts done. We'll do the skulls. It is Christmas right now, basically, but these skulls are really cool looking. And you know what, skulls are kind of the Day of the Dead, and people just like skulls, so skulls will sell all year round. I actually wish I had more of these skull containers because I would make more of these in skull shape. I like the thickness of the skulls, and they're just something that I can see people enjoying the look of. Now if you kept up on these and didn't like wait until you have 30 candles, this wouldn't be so bad, but I literally had like 30 candles when I started doing this. So it takes a lot longer then because now you're doing 30 candles all at the same time. I don't know if I'm going to get all of them done at the same time. This is a process, it takes time. I might only get some done, but I'm trying to get as many done as I can because they do take up a lot of space when they're all broken candles. So I'm trying to consolidate a little bit. I did get more than one of it. Spiced gingerbread was actually one of them, but we also were able to transfer spiced gingerbread back into a reused glass, so we didn't have to put that one through the melting process. That's the other thing you can do if you happen to come across the Bath & Body Works jars. You can get those and actually utilize those and just transfer the whole candle, which is really nice when you can do that. Now, if you want to reuse the wax into candles, this is one that we've already made and burned to see that it works. But as you see, it works. They don't go all the way to the top of the small mason jars because we're using the wick and everything that came in these candles. You can buy wick sets, but why not reuse what we already have? It's free. So we've got the small mason jars and we got 3 wicks right here that were already used in the previous 3 wick candles. What you're going to do is you're going to get some hot glue. It helps keep this wick at the bottom where it's supposed to be and doesn't move around then, because otherwise it's going to move and then the wick's not going to be centered at all. Let me pull a little bit of extra wax off the bottom of these, otherwise it doesn't stick well. But you put a little bit of hot glue onto the bottom. Doing that off camera because I got the hot glue plugged in on the other spot or other side. And then you just take one of these candles and you insert the wick. I actually saw someone the other day, and this was a really good idea. I don't have that option right now. He used a pen. He unscrewed the top and the bottom, took the ink out, and he inserted the wick through the pen so that way he could put it down centered and then press it down. I'm just using a popsicle stick, couldn't think of what the heck it was called, to press it down so that it's down firm at the bottom. But it's more or less centered. It may not be 100% centered, but you put that in, let it dry. That'll help keep it still. But you do that for each of these. I am probably going to end up doing that pen hack at some point. Really good idea that guy had. And he might have found it from someone else, but this was a really smart idea. I can't remember the YouTube channel, otherwise I'd shout it out and say, hey, this is who did it. It was a really good idea, though. Get another one of the jars. Gotta get it kind of as centered as we can. My hand does not want to slide down the wick. I'm having that issue of my hand is sticking to itself. Now before you start pouring the wax, you're going to want to straighten out those wicks some if they're cockeyed. And then we got the last one. Now the only thing at this point that I have used that I had to personally buy to recycle these candles is the mason jars. You can usually get a full package of these small mason jars for around, what, $5, $4, so not that much money. To recycle all these candles that were all, what, $23 a piece, it cost me next to nothing. That is how you would insert the wick into the candles. Once the wax is melted, you're going to pour that through and you'll have candles. Same thing as Bath & Body Works, except smaller in a different jar. The melted wax, all you're going to do, I'm going to put my hand on that because it makes it easier, is pour your wax right on in. You want to, just like you would with a candle, you don't want to fill it up to the point where the wick is completely covered. So you fill it up most of the way. And then you're just going to let it cool. It's going to harden on its own. If you need to, you can manipulate the wick when it's still soft. That one's going to have to get manipulated. The wick did move almost instantly to the side. For the most part, the wick stays pretty solid in the center. But every once in a while, it's going to move. Now, of course, that last one could have used a little bit more wax. I have another of this candle, so once I melt it down, I might add a little more wax to this one, just so it's a little more level with all the rest. But all in all, that's how you would do that. It does, like I said, basically 3 of the small jars. Not horrible, free candles. But that's how you would make them into candles instead of wax, if you don't want to have to buy the wicking set and everything else. If you have to buy the wicking set, then it's going to be another process. This is just using everything that you basically got with the candles already.